I'm a big city boy. I have my office in the middle of the forest. The more time we have, the more time we can spend for the community. It was the three of us who decided to kick out the smokers of the school. Have fun and talk to the people you like.
Armin, welcome to iNetworker channel. So I'm very happy that you are here.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So I will be telling you a story. So I was filming myself, so with some knowledge about networking and so on and so forth, and then I met Jelena Stein, so probably you remember, and there will be also a hint to the interview with her, so just somewhere over there.
Okay.
And she thought, so why I'm not here interviewing people? So for example, somebody like Armin Piálek, so just to say, okay, so and so I started leaving my comfort zone and started interviewing people. So it's thanks to Lena and thanks to you. So,
cool. Well, thanks for sharing that with me.
And finally, so you're here. I was quite surprised so that you have chosen the University of Bayreuth as the destination of your studies. So because you are originally from Berlin, and Bayreuth is just not around the corner from Berlin, So, but then, so I've seen that your knowledge of Czech is very good. I thought there might be a connection. Is it?
There is some connection, indeed, because Bayreuth is very close to the Czech border, and I did do Czech language there. Mm-hmm. Because I grew up bilingual Czech-German, so I could speak Czech, but I couldn't write it and I couldn't read it. Well, I could read it, but like the first school year.
I mean, to write in Czech is incredibly difficult.
Yes, and I didn't know any grammar, so I went there. I could do Czech, but I also went there because I could study philosophy and economics, something that only Bayreuth offered at the time. Mm-hmm. And I thought it's cool to have the kind of philosophical overview and then the hardcore economics and everything in between, which is a lot of politics, development, like a lot of topics are in between. So I thought it's an interesting combination, and that's why I chose it.
So I was passing Bayreuth for quite some time.
It's beautiful, you should stop by.
Yeah, so yes, this year I went to the Bayreuth Festival.
Oh wow!
So just I had waited for 5 seasons to get a ticket there. So just
only 5 seasons. I thought it's like a decade you have to wait.
No, so it is easy. So we went there with a colleague of mine who has grown up in the Czech Republic. So not grown up, but she went to kindergarten there and so on and so forth. And she was saying just like it smells like. Prague, it smells like Czech Republic, so it's like, so she had a very, very good connection to her childish feelings and, so childhood, to her childhood in the Czech Republic.
Right.
So did it, was it the case with you as well? So is it just like Czech Republic, so Bayreuth, or?
First of all, it's Bavaria, right? And you can feel the Bavarian very, very strongly. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, there is obviously a lot of connection between Bavaria, more between Bavaria and Czech Republic than there is between Czech Republic and kind of Prussia or like northern Germany, which I think is it's more different.
Yeah, Bavaria and Bohemia. So.
Yeah, Bavaria, Bohemia, like if you look at cultural things like food, music, there is connections for sure. Mm-hmm. We're in the center of Europe, right? So all the borders have changed multiple times. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, I thought always as an experience, because I can still remember my first course, like my introduction to how to use the library. Back then, we still had to use the library, because computers were just coming in. Yeah. And the guy was from Bayreuth, and he talked like in a strong Bavarian accent, and I almost couldn't understand him. And I was like, oh wow, welcome to Bavaria. I don't even understand how to get the books out.
But this is in Franconia, right? So
it's Franconia,
yeah.
So, and that's also something I didn't know. As a Berliner, you tend to be quite ignorant about all the local things in Germany, and Franconians, they don't talk to the real Bavarians, and there's lots of local fights which are not fights, more like stories people tell each other. And,
No, so I can remember. So first time, so I landed in Munich, and this was the time. So when the announcements on the suburban trains were made by the drivers and by the system, So, and I could not understand anywhere.
Absolutely.
But after a while, so I got used to Bavarian and especially to this Upper Bavarian. So because I was also working for a library in Nebelsberg, not far from Munich, and of course all the people there are just technicians, and some the locals, so they were talking in Upper Bavarian, so there was no other way to communicate to them.
Yeah.
And I was so confident, and I was going to Augsburg, and the Swabia already, and I couldn't understand anywhere there.
Again, something different.
Yeah,
the dialects are very strong. But Bayreuth is a beautiful city, and it's interesting actually, because Bayreuth was quite famous for being quite closed as a community, as a city. They didn't want to open up. I think it was sometime in the 60s, they were offered to have an international stop from the train line, like a major train line running through their city, putting it on the map, which is something many communities would fight for, it's good to have major trains coming and going to a city, it brings tourist business, all that, and they didn't want it. They asked the people, no, we don't want this, then we have all the foreigners coming in and people who are not from here, and so they were quite close. But then the universities started being there, and the university, when a university is in a small town, it changes the town tremendously, And Bayreuth at the time had 9,000 students, now it's a lot more. And altogether the population back then, I don't know what it's now, was 90,000. So 10% of the population was students, young people from all over the place. A lot of people also outside Germany, and they want to have a cultural life, But then there was nothing there in the city, in Berlin, you can just go somewhere and consume it, and you have a huge variety.
You have the Opera House.
You have the Opera House, often Greenberg, and as you said, most students would leave Bayreuth in this moment because they could rent out their apartments to the people going to the festival and make a lot of money. So that's why students wouldn't go there, and you wouldn't get get tickets. But I'm not saying there's a lot of cultural offers. But what I meant, when students came there, they could change the town and have an impact. And we were very self-organized. And if we wanted to do a party, we had to organize it ourselves. Which I really loved about studying in Bayreuth. It was this community feeling of we students in the city, which is a little foreign to us. But if we want something, we have to do it ourselves, and we had to organize ourselves.
So, you have been doing civic engagement all your life long.
In any context you can do it.
Community building and so on and so forth.
It's something that gives me purpose for sure. Thinking, for most people, right? Seeing that you can have an impact. And impact doesn't always have to be the big cause that you like. It can be a cause that's something that you want to see change. And I have certain causes that I follow as well. But purpose is more about community, people you spend time with, and it's about doing things together and achieving something together. Whether it's a party or whether it's a study trip or something else. And that was in Bayreuth much easier than it was in Berlin. I was also a student speaker in Berlin, but in Berlin, to change things, professors were never there at the Free University. It was a long drive out there, always closed doors. It was very hierarchical.
So the Free University has a real campus most.
It does, but most people live in Berlin, right? They don't live near the campus, and the campus it's a quiet place.
Yes.
In Bayreuth, the campus was where all the things were happening.
But the University of Bayreuth is quite new. So just 50 years or something.
Something like that. I would have to check, but quite a new university. But successful and growing, also because they introduce a lot of new kind of study programs, just like the one that I studied, philosophy and economics. But what I say, I had opportunity to really have an impact, and I could see the impact that I'm having. Just in the time I was there, they introduced student fees, and I was not a supporter of that, right? So I was against student fees. And we had discussions with other students whether you want those fees or not, and then the promise was you can use the fees, but the student body, the ones that were elected, we could choose where the money goes. So with the student fees that I was paying, which was 500 euros extra per term or semester, we then bought more copy machines and gave people free copy, that they could make copies for free, and longer opening time for the library. So immediately we paid something, but also the service got better. And we as students could decide where the money goes, which was beautiful.
And this is what fascinates me actually. So in the German educational system in general, so this system of school speakers and how you call it? Speakers of
representatives of student bodies. I was also I started in school. And I was the Schulsprecher, like the speaker, the representative of the student body. There's a representative of the parent body, and there's a representative of the professor's body, teacher's body. And that makes sense because those three are involved with school. All three have specific interests, and all three have to find ways to solve certain situations. It was the three of us who decided to kick out the smokers of the school. Like, we're one of the first schools not to allow smoking, and and there were different interests. Teachers weren't happy because they would like to have a smoke while looking over the children and what they did on the courtyard, right? But we had interest as students to get them off, and also all the student kids who were smoking and burning out, like table tennis balls and stuff. So, and teachers obviously don't want anyone to smoke. So, parents didn't want anyone to. So, but it's good to have them all to discuss and make this kind of decision. We also, the three bodies together, decided whether certain pupils that wouldn't reach the next year because their marks were too bad, whether they should be moved to next year anyways. What's better for the development? Ultimately, the teachers decide, but they wanted to hear what do the students have to say. You know them as well. And what do they have the parents? And I like this kind of cooperation, and it's a great practice, and it was a good time,
But still, so about this comparison between bigger cities and smaller cities or towns. So because you've lived also in Paris, so you had an exchange semester there at Sorbonne. So you are now in Neustrelitz, so it's Mecklenburg.
It's the first town in Mecklenburg.
First time in Mecklenburg. So just you started talking about the advantages of these smaller cities, so but also maybe disadvantages. So about also that some changes are not that perceptive. So there. So, but if you compare the advantages of big cities and small cities or towns, so what would they be?
First of all, I'm a big city boy. I'm from Berlin, and I love Berlin. I love the energy. I love when we go out this door, there's life on the street, and we can go to a bar next door. There's still shops open, and it's just the energy up there. Right. So it's something I loved in Moscow and in Paris and in New York. New York even more than anywhere else because there's so much energy, just so many people, and that energizes me. Like, it gives me energy. It doesn't suck energy from me so much. Obviously, all the offers. It's just the city offers a lot of things. Small cities are differently organized, and you can have a huge impact when you have a good community. When you know each other well and you kind of collaborate well. There's beautiful stories of small communities, like small villages that just said, hey, let's do something different, let's do it together, and they achieved this. I just visited a small village up in the north, and like 15 years ago, they decided to do a different kind of energy circle, like they did an energy collective, you could say. And now they're totally independent, off the grid, they don't pay anything. The energy they produce is so much that they can sell it. So the community is making money that they invest in a free music education. And it's just a beautiful, something like this would be very difficult in the city, right? But in a small community, that's easier because people know each other and they also know who's making the decisions. Here, from the district level to the mayor, there's loads of different levels in between. There's a lot of people talking, a lot of different perspectives. It's harder, right? So that's what I love about small cities. This disadvantage is this energy. Like, for me, it lacks the energy. Like, now we're in Neustrelitz, and we are governed, the Deutsche Stiftung für Engagement und Ehren, the German Foundation for Volunteering and Service, is a government agency. And we have a focus point on supporting volunteering in rural area. That's one of the focuses we have.
So I think that's a great idea in general.
But also to put us there. They said, we don't want you in Berlin. We want you in a rural area because that's where your main focus lies, on supporting engagement and volunteering there, which is quite different there actually, and I can talk about some of the differences between volunteering in cities and rural areas. But it's hugely important for building those communities, for shaping those villages, and also hugely successful. And so that's why I like that we're there. But when I come from the office, my office is in the middle of the forest, the last bus leaves at 5:30. If I haven't left the office by 5:30, I'm walking 1 hour to the train station. The train to Berlin is only once an hour. On the whole way, when I walk there, I meet like 2 people because these streets are empty. Even on a beautiful late summer day, restaurants are empty, streets are empty, and I always wonder, where are all those people? So that's something where I miss the energy of it.
It's a good luck for you that you're not there on Sundays.
Yes.
Even not in the forest, so on the streets you would not meet anybody.
Plus it is quite, I have some colleagues who moved to Neustrelitz from all over Germany. And some of them say it's been really, really hard to connect with the locals. Again, it's a closely knit community, it's quite closed, and it's hard for outsiders to get in. When you live in a big city, you have people from everywhere coming all the time. So you train that muscle, and for you it's the most normal thing that you have a new neighbor or like a new colleague or something new, and then you keep them in, so you're used to that. In a small city, people stay there, it's more stable. They're not used to it. They haven't trained that muscle of getting to know people, so they're more closed. And I'm generalizing, obviously. That is my experience, and it might be very different depending on the community we're talking about.
So there are many community building foundations also here in Germany. Of course, this is also one of the advantages of the US civic engagement, I would say so, but also in Germany it's quite popular, and also, for example, in Berlin districts. So when you're talking about that, there is a possibility to make decisions on a local level and effectively. So I think that these community building foundations are very helpful for this. So is it the case also here in Berlin? So how do you see this?
Is it the case? Definitely we need more of participation, like platforms and opportunities for different people to participate in decision-making processes. At some point or another, we are representative democracy, yes, but it's good to involve people about local building projects, about strategic things, just have them involved. And I mean true involvement, not very often we have kind of a fake involvement. All come to a town hall meeting and we show you this great construction project, but it's already been decided, it will be put, and all it is in the end is a show where they sell you something. Real involvement means, hey, we're planning this, those are the 3 options, which one would you go? What should we think about that we haven't thought about right now? And then, have another meeting 3 months later, hey, we actually, based on the first meeting, we made the following changes. That is true participation, and that helps. And it helps to avoid disasters like Stuttgart 21 and others where community was not involved. And
it's a railway station, central railway station in
Stuttgart. And there were huge demonstrations against it. Like people didn't want this to happen because it was a construction site for years and it was a super expensive project. And obviously this, I think, was also a change in Germany that when they realized we have to involve local communities in such big projects. But also in any other kind of decision making, it's good to involve communities and build them. It's not easy, it's difficult. Right now I'm working on a strategy process, so the government wants to have a strategy how to support volunteering in the future, and said we want to learn from the volunteers out there, and there are 30 million in Germany, and we want to learn from them what can we do as the federal government to support their efforts, right? What is needed. And a lot of them just saying about all the things that go bad. And it's quite hard sometimes to be constructive and say this is a good action that could be taken by the government. It's more this is wrong what they're doing, this is wrong, and it becomes this punching thing, more than a real participation. So it can be frustrating, but yeah.
Yes, one thing about when you are talking about Stuttgart 21. So I'm thinking about Tempelhof, so just around the corner from my home here in Berlin. And actually, so there was a referendum so that there would not be
building
houses in the areas. Right now, they're coming back to this idea.
Because the referendum, I think, was only for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
It was only for the next 10 years they're not allowed. I'm not sure, but I think that was the case. Yeah. But again, it's good to ask. It would be nice to ask you as a neighbor to that old airfield, which is now a park. You know, what do you think about it? You know, and I mean, we have a shortages of flats. People understand this. You know, it's a beautiful park. People understand this. So what's the solution? You know, I'm not saying it's easy, but we have to have this tension. And in the tension, if we overcome the tension and come to a compromise, a common decision, then it will be a good decision. And then it will be carried by everyone. And then we'll move on much faster.
Yeah, so you are now in deep east of Germany, so to say.
Yes.
And do you see the difference in the decision-making processes in the east and in the west of Germany, or is it more or less universal?
Well, decision-making processes, I mean, different.
What we talk about involvement of communities.
Okay. There are differences in between the east and the west in terms of how people volunteer. There is a difference between rural and urban when it comes to community and volunteering and service. So, first of all, East Germany, West Germany, when we look at this, right? So, civil society wasn't organized there was just very little organized civil society. There was a lot of informal engagement, and then there was a lot of formal volunteering or voluntold. The government said you do this, kind of a Sputnik style that you had in Soviet Union here. You were part of the pioneers, the FDR. You were representative of your working body.
Yes.
So there was structures, but all of this was it was an Ehrenamt, like you had to do it and you weren't paid for it, but it was like kind of, so there were structures in the East where people did something voluntary, but it wasn't totally voluntary, I'd say. And we have this today as well, right? If we look at Schöffen, I don't know what Schöffen is. It's like assistant judges. If you called or even a volunteer at election, you know, like I'm volunteering at elections ever since I'm 18, but I registered once, and now every time there's an election, I get a letter. You can only not come if you're sick or a first-degree family member has died. Those are the two reasons I'm not allowed to come. Any other reason, they won't accept. Right? So it's also voluntold. Anyways, that was about East and West. So in Western Germany, we had long tradition, all over Germany, we have a long tradition of volunteering, right? Then there was the separation, and East Germany went a different way.
I think firefighters were the first volunteers, more or less.
It's a great example for differences between urban engagement and volunteering and rural engagement and volunteering. Because urban areas, you have professionally organized, paid, you know, people work as firefighters. But because in rural areas they're so spread out, you know, you can't as communities or rural communities, they can't afford having paid firefighters in such quantity. So that really only works because of volunteer firefighters. And those guys who get a call while still being at work, and then they immediately have to run to wherever the help is needed. So that's a great example for this. And maybe it was one of the first kind of voluntary structures that went into the East, but I wouldn't know that so much. But what we see, more people are engaged in the West than in the East. But the difference, beginning of the 90s, was much bigger than it is now. Now the difference is very small. So somewhere where the East, in terms of numbers, in terms of volunteer opportunity, has really caught up and is catching up totally. So we really see that there is a unification happening.
But this is happening just because the people really see that they can make an impact, so they can really contribute. So because, so in the GDR times, it was, as you said, just a screen or whatever. So very much of fake engagement. So, but now they really see that it can bring impact.
But the motivation, you're asking about the motivations for people. Like, why are people doing this? Why are people volunteering? And those reasons are really super wide. I remember my first volunteering in the student body. It was literally because there was a girl from the year up that I really liked, and I just want to do something with her. I was like, I have to become school speaker, then I spent more time with them. So that was my very personal motivation to become a school representative. And we work together.
You should be grateful to this also, because now you're so fluent also within this interview.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's a very personal decision in the end. There is a lot of surveys, and many people actually say they volunteer. I mean, not because of impact. That's sometimes we think that's the main reason, but the main reason actually is community, meeting other people. You know, I mean, this is much more important, obviously, also to older people. When you ask them, why do you volunteer? It's because I get in touch with other people, I stay fresh. But in the end, it's a long list, and all of them are good. You know, like even my very personal, egoistic reason, it was still good, because in the end, I had to do work for the community, for everyone, you know, and voluntary. So, yeah. And I think that's the same in East and the West. People realize that they have needs, and that volunteer services can help you with those needs. I think it was opportunities. East Germany was lacking opportunities to volunteers because the structures were not there. There were not so many associations there. They just had to be founded and started. You know, in the West, you have just 50 or 40 years more of a history of association after the war. I mean, you know, where associations were started, foundations were started. All of this in East Germany just happened. Plus all the structural difficulties, the economic difficulties in the 90s. People had different worries at the time. You know, they lost their jobs. You know, how do I sustain my family? That was maybe a time-lagging thing. But those are obviously assumptions. But the nice thing is, the nice observation, East and West are catching up. Then I was saying there's differences between urban and rural engagement. In the urban areas, you know, you have so many offers out there. As I said, why I love the city, you know, sometimes hard to find the time. Like it's hard to find the time for any volunteer, because people have normal lives, families, people to take care of privately, you know, so it's hard to find the time. It's actually something that many volunteers tell us, hey, we need more time, and there's more and more bureaucracy that we have to deal with, and I don't know where to find the time, so I don't volunteer at all anymore, kind of, you know. So that's a problem, something that we hear a lot. But in what we see just in cities, people have offices more project-based, short-term engagements. And in the rural areas, you know, it's really long-term. It's very much integrated into local communities. You know, like when a local village makes a festival, you know, obviously all the firemen, the voluntary firefighters come and organize something. So, and people can very much see this. If something happens in Berlin, you know, there's also local communities in the different kiezes in Berlin or districts, or like a smaller part of a district. Yes, but people don't know each other so well. You know, it's more anonymous. Whereas your engagement in rural areas can be more seen. Also, here I can go. I have a lot of choices what to do in the evening. You have less choices, obviously, in the village. So if you want to meet people, you might very well be engaged in the local association, because at least, you know, they have a drink after their training or whatever they do. You know, it's also a way to just socialize in a way. And this function is stronger in the villages than it is. I'm very lucky in that what I do at the foundation, I deeply believe in. So also when I work for the BMW Foundation and for the Bosch Foundation, I believe what we are working on is great. So I learned a lot in both stations before, I learn a lot now. And yes, I think we're living in times where less and less of our time is needed. You know, things are more automated now, artificial intelligence. And what do we do with our time? And I'm a very positive person. I think, hey, the more time we have, the more time we can spend for the community, for each other, for the way we live together, for the way we work together, how we collaborate, how challenges are out there and problems, you know. And together we can solve them, and not all of them are profitable challenges. You know, many are just challenges that just people need to talk about and find very concrete solutions on the ground. And volunteering in the end always is something local, always, you know, very rarely happens kind of international. So yeah, that is a project that is very dear to my heart, and something that I want to work on. So I don't differentiate so much about my engagement and what I do at work.
We talked about your volunteer experience, so a little bit about the authorities, about this power level. So, but you also worked for some donor related foundations. So just like what you mentioned. So Bosch Foundation, so the International Alumni Center of the Robert Bosch Foundation, and also the BMW Foundation at that card.
Correct. Yeah.
So just what did you learn there? So from that perspective, from the donor's perspective. So it's like, and how does it correspond to your, I don't know, so growth so in your life? So.
Well, it had a big impact on me. So I started at the BMW Foundation at the age of 23 as an intern, and I then stayed for over 10 years. And BMW, the BMW Group, they have their CSR, their corporate social responsibility department, where they do kind of, corporate volunteering engagements. They do corporate giving, right? And one part of this, my tiny part, was also the BMW Foundation, but we were an independent foundation, right? As a corporate foundation, we were independent. So the BMW Group couldn't tell us what to do and where to go. We were deeply connected and we had a lot of exchange, but we are an independent foundation. So it's just a different instrument of a corporation to support, kind of, to work for the community, to give something back. So that's kind of, I think it's important to differentiate between CSR, which is something that is totally under control of the foundation, totally under control of the corporation, and the foundation, because once the foundation is founded, then it only reports to its kind of Satzung, it's, how do you say, like it's...
Articles of Association.
Articles of Association, exactly, and it's kind of impact areas, and obviously there is a yearly control body that looks that the money is spent in the correct way. But other than that, there's not much influence that they can have, nor that they that it mattered so much to them, because it was kind of outside. Beautiful thing about the corporate foundation, something like the BMW Foundation, it's not very bureaucratic. We saw great ideas. It was very easy for us to get connected with them and to support them financially, but also with the name. Like BMW is a great brand, so we could give credibility to great projects. Like once we learned about them, they could, and we wanted to support them. Just the brand that we as BMW Foundation would support them made a huge difference. BMW Foundation was working internationally, so I had the opportunity to learn a lot from around the world, which was great. So again, something which I deeply support. Let's look over the border. Let's look how other countries are doing it and solving the problems. So much to learn. And I got in touch with concepts like collective impact, which is a community-based decision-making process design. And so that was very beautiful. And the Bosch Foundation Bosch Foundation is something really, really great. I was working for the International Alumni Center, which was a daughter of the Bosch Foundation. Now, about the Bosch Foundation, I think it's a cool story, because it's also interesting, why do corporations do this? Why do corporations support those kind of things? So,
I think 94% of the Bosch profit.
92, 94, something. Exactly. So Bosch actually is a social enterprise, because let's say more than 90% of their profits go into the foundation. And once they're in the foundation, they can only serve the common good. They can only serve whatever is in the associated papers written. They can do this. So everyone working for Bosch, it's 400,000 people around the world. They actually, whatever profit they're generating goes into a common cause. And there it was very, very much driven by Robert Bosch, by the founder of Bosch, because he saw the destruction of the war, right? And he said, I want that my company invest into good international relations, Völkerverständigung in German, right? So, it was very important, the Bosch Foundation, in the kind of reconciliation of Germany with its neighbors, right? And I thought it's beautiful, right? So it's an entrepreneur taking responsibility. For the BMW Foundation, Herbert Quandt, it was to honor Herbert Quandt, who was an entrepreneur who saved BMW when it was in crisis. And foundations are there forever, in a way, There's foundations today that were founded by corporations, but the corporations don't exist anymore. Herlitz Foundation, right? Herlitz is a company people who are older will know. They produce pencils and stuff, but now they don't exist anymore. So foundation is still there. So you can say thank you to a big person, in their name, start a foundation, and it will make the name kind of last forever. Plus, it is cool to have kind of a speedboat. Like, we as the BMW Foundation, and also for Bosch, I think it's important, but there I don't know it so well because we're just a daughter. But in BMW, as we were working international, we could feel like, what are kind of trends, what are the new ideas, the new innovations, the new social innovations that are happening on the ground in India and Argentina, everywhere where BMW is also selling cars, and very interested also in the development of the country, right? Also interested in stability in those countries.
Yeah.
So by supporting leadership in all the sectors, business, politics, and civil society, and doing forums where all those three meet, it was also in the interest of BMW because, it was a great network that we formed, but also we had a feeling for what's happening on the ground, which was giving, I think, good information to the leadership in the BMW group. They have their own think tanks and information centers, of course, but this was kind of a very direct way to get into different kind of networks and to get a good feeling on what's happening.
Still, a remark on the sidelines about Robert Bosch Foundation. So I liked how they had reformed the idea of what they fund. So they simplified these applications forms, such and made it more accessible to the communities, to the people. So of course for well-established NGOs it was I wouldn't say disaster, but it was a hard blow.
It was a hard, yeah.
So, but in general, if you're talking about because they're having supporting innovations in health, they're having supporting innovations in school system, in education, and also in the community building. So it was of course a very great support. So
I think. I was outside, it was very hard for many people on the inside of Bosch, and as you said, it was very hard for many of the projects and organizations that they supported, because they made a very rigid cut, right? They said, because Robert Bosch himself said, you have to renew as a foundation from time to time and put everything on hold and then start something new. So they stopped everything, they gave like a 3-year period where kind of transition period, but then they stopped completely the funding for all the projects they did and started to strategize about what's the new issue areas, what's something that we need impact on now, what are the challenges of the world right now. So I thought it was a beautiful process, not well done everywhere, it's a difficult process of course, but in general I thought that's great. And that's also something that foundations should do, because foundations have a special role. They have capital, right? Bosch Foundation has money, right? Which is marvelous, and they can invest into social cause and they can fail. Because even if they fail and their investment doesn't bring the impact that they intended, next year they still have money. Because their financial support success is independent of the impact success that they have, right? Because they're a foundation. So they make their money by investing it, and then the profits of that, the interest, they put into the project. So they should be much more eager to try out new things and also fail, right? That's kind of that's something I learned from my first boss, and I love this kind of approach. This kind of, we could be the innovators, but we're not. Like in reality, foundations are quite rigid and don't try out so many things, which I find a shame, really.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about how to network, without talking about networking. But now, for the last question, I would like to go to a very nice story you shared just before we started with this interview. So that you have just come back from the vacation, or workation, as you told, from France.
Workation, I think you have to explain. Like, it's the mixture of working and vacation. So you put two together, you have a vacation.
Yeah. So you were cutting the grapes there for the wine.
Yes.
And also enjoyed wine, and the good company of people there. So how to make friends and how to do networking in such situations? I
think it's a beautiful question, because I went there and I learned again a lot, or it renewed a lot of the knowledge. So I was doing the vendange, it's called in France, and so it's usually young people gather in the season when the grapes are ripe for 2 weeks to cut the grapes. Right? Some get paid, some just do it voluntary. But you arrive at a beautiful estate, you have the vineyards, so it's a beautiful countryside. That all in itself, for me, from the city, is already something beautiful. The owners, they talk to you, you're not working for them. They're talking to you as, hey, the grapes I've been working on all year, you will be cutting them. And they were cutting them as well, right? So the owners and you were a team from the moment. So it's a lot about communication. It's a lot about saying thank you for your support. It was very hard work. We started at 7, we worked till 4 or 5. The sun was burning, 35 degrees. But we did this together, and in the evening, we got really good wines from the territories that we were collecting it from. They were running around with water, so they took care of us. We always felt taken care of. We had great conversations, and fantastic food. And all of those are the ingredients for successful networks, right? For how to be a good host, If people come and visit you, like your friends, what kind of hosting? How do you welcome them? How do you make them appreciate it, feel appreciated? So all of this they did very well. So every day I was exhausted and happy. So it's really, from such a small it's a very controlled environment, right? But in this controlled environment, they did everything right, like wherever they could, they made it easier for us, and was about eye-level communication, about achieving a goal together, and then cutting grapes is quite easy, your brain can still do something, so it's fantastic to just talk to other people. So I got to know a lot of new people. I could practice some French, talked a lot of English, which I'm glad because I haven't talked English in a while as well. So learning on many sites while being physically active was also, I think, another part which I enjoyed. But when we talk about community making and networks, sometimes people are under pressure. I have to go to this event and network. I said, don't do it. Like, have fun and talk to the people you like. Don't be strategic if you want, but make it fun for you. And then you'll really get to know people and you build trust. And when you have trust, you can do things together. And then start with doing small things together to build even more trust, and then start working on the big projects.
Yeah,
that would be my recommendation.
And it's also cutting grapes.
And cutting grapes, do something, yeah. We do too little, you're a part of many workshops, and we do too little things outside. Yeah. I'm a strong believer of when you have a group together, let's go for a walk. Yeah. No task, just a walk, half an hour walk around the block. And it does magic. Yeah. And I believe in the serendipity. Some of the best connections I met in serendipitous moments, like a walk, and not in the icebreaker thing in the beginning or the speed dating that we sometimes have in, when you have workshops or conferences or something like that.
Thank you very much for this inspiration and for this interview.
Thank you for inviting me. It was great to be here.